So this is a big one, right? Faith can move mountains.
It is. Yeah.
It's one of those verses everyone kind of throws around, but like
Yes.
figuring out what it actually means,
Yeah.
for us,
Mm-hmm.
that's the real mountain to climb sometimes, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going deep on Matthew 17:20 today.
Okay.
We've got some great commentary too to
Uh,
kind of help unpack it all.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a passage that's definitely, I think, ripe for misunderstanding.
Oh yeah.
Um, people get so hung up on that,
Yeah.
that mustard seed thing, thinking it's about the amount of faith you've got, but there's just
Right.
so much more to it.
Yeah, and to get to that more,
Yeah.
we really got to set the scene, right? Like this verse comes right after
Okay.
the disciples try to heal this demon-possessed boy,
Right.
and they totally fail.
Yeah.
And that honestly kind of throws me off a little bit
Uh-huh.
because you know they've seen Jesus work miracles.
Well,
I mean, they've even done a few themselves.
yeah.
So like, what gives?
Like, why the sudden stage fright?
What's with the stage fright?
Yeah,
Tell that.
well, think of it less like stage fright and more like
Okay.
like a power outage.
Uh-huh.
You see them not being able to heal the boy.
Okay.
It's not just about this one kid, it's about their authority being challenged.
Interesting.
Like Jesus had given them this power to act in his name,
Uh-huh.
and then suddenly it's like it's just not working.
Okay, so it's not that they're just bad healers or something. It's like there's
Right.
something deeper going on with their ability to like
Yeah.
channel God's power.
Exactly. Their faith is really being put to the test here
Wow.
in a way they haven't really experienced before.
Okay.
And that's what leads to this whole like
Right.
faith as small as a mustard seed moving mountains bit. But
Yeah.
as we know, those mountains aren't always literal mountains.
Right, because if I could literally just shift mountains by, just believing hard enough, I'd have a pretty sweet landscaping business.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, right.
I think we'd be billionaires.
Exactly. But you're saying these mountains,
Yeah.
they're more like metaphors
I
or
think that's a good way to put it.
okay.
Think about what a mountain represents, right?
Right.
It's huge. It's immovable.
Uh-huh.
It's right there in your way.
Yeah.
In the Bible, mountains often symbolize these like massive obstacles in life
Oh, okay.
that just feel impossible to overcome.
I see.
So, think of like a career setback that just seems insurmountable,
Oh, yeah.
or a relationship breakdown that just feels like your world is shattered.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, those are the mountains we're talking about here.
So it's not just this like, magic trick where you
Right.
just like wish a problem away.
Right.
It's about tackling these like huge real life challenges,
Mhm.
but with this like mustard seed faith.
And that mustard seed part is really important because it's not saying you need this tiny little amount of faith.
Right.
The Greek word that's used here, it's not really about the size.
Uh-huh.
It's about the quality of your belief.
Interesting.
Like, what is that faith rooted in? That's what matters.
So it's less about how much I believe.
Right.
And more about what that belief is actually like anchored to.
Like, imagine you're standing on a cliff,
Okay.
about to bungee jump.
Oh gosh.
It's not about how strongly you believe in the bungee cord,
Okay.
right? It's about trusting that principle that
Right.
it's built on.
Mm-hmm.
The physics, the materials, all the testing that went into that thing.
Right.
You're trusting in a system that's bigger
Yeah.
than just your feelings in that moment.
Okay, that's a vivid analogy.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this is where like the disciples stumbled.
Uh-huh.
Like their faith wasn't hooked into the right system.
Right. They were relying on their past successes, their own experiences, instead of like fully channeling God's power
Through them.
So they had faith, but it wasn't anchored in the right source.
They had faith, yes, but it wasn't anchored in the source that could actually move mountains.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a subtle but like massive distinction.
It is, and it's a distinction I think a lot of us miss,
Yeah.
even today.
Oh, for sure.
We think faith is all about how intensely we feel something,
Yeah.
but this passage suggests
Right.
it's more about where we place our trust
Mm-hmm.
and how that trust fuels our actions.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
it's about what we do
Yeah.
with that faith,
Mm.
not just how much of it we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're setting up for like the next part here where we're gonna
That's okay.
really get into like what does this mean for us
Yeah.
For me, for you.
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually, like, put this into practice?
Right. How do we move those mountains in
Yeah.
our own lives?
All right. So stay tuned for that.
Exactly. I'll be right back. Okay, so that brings us to like the real heart of it, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm facing a mountain, like that job I just can't seem to land, or
Yeah.
like that rift in my family, it just feels impossible to mend.
Right.
How does this mustard seed faith actually help?
Right.
Does just believing make that stuff change?
No, it's not about just believing. It's not passive belief.
Okay.
It's about like plugging into this power source
Yeah.
that's so much bigger than our own.
Mm.
Think of it as aligning yourself with God's will,
Right.
not just wishing things were different, but asking for his strength to work through you,
Okay.
even when you don't have all the answers.
So it's less, I believe I can fly, and more like,
Right.
I believe God can use me to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Even if I don't know how to do it.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay.
And that's where this idea of faith as a journey comes in, right?
Okay.
That mustard seed, it doesn't just sit there.
Mm-hmm.
It grows into something so much bigger. Trust your faith. It's meant to evolve,
Okay.
to deepen over time.
So I guess that means if I'm sitting here beating myself up
Right.
for not having this, like overwhelming, unshakable faith,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of missing the point.
You're absolutely missing the point.
Okay, good.
It's about taking the faith that you do have,
Okay.
however small it might feel right now,
Uh-huh.
and putting it into action.
Hmm.
Trusting that God can use your efforts,
Okay.
your steps, even the ones that feel fumbling or uncertain.
That's oddly freeing.
It is.
It takes the pressure off of needing to have this like
Yeah.
massive movie montage level of belief.
Exactly.
It's more about taking those smaller steps,
Right.
those acts of trust, and letting them kind of build on each other.
It's like learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
You don't just hop on and zoom off perfectly.
Right.
There's wobbles, falls, maybe a scraped knee or two.
Yeah.
But each attempt, it strengthens your balance.
Uh-huh.
It builds your confidence. And I think faith works the same way.
Interesting.
You practice, you stumble, you get back up,
Yeah.
and gradually you find yourself moving forward with the steadiness you didn't have before.
So how do we actually practice faith?
Right.
If it's not just about, feeling a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
what does it look like to actually put it into action?
Right.
Especially when we're facing those mountains in our lives.
Well, I think it starts with something that a lot of us find really hard.
Okay.
And that's just being completely honest with God, not just reciting, memorized prayers,
Yeah.
but actually pouring out your heart,
Yeah.
your fears, your doubts,
Uh,
even your anger.
wow.
Telling him about the mountain that's looming in your path,
Okay.
admitting that you don't know how to move it on your own.
So ditching the perfect Christian act
Yeah.
and just getting real.
Just get real.
Okay. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But besides prayer,
Yeah.
what else can we do to kind of move from feeling stuck to actually taking action?
Well, I think digging into scripture,
Okay.
not just skimming it,
Uh-huh.
but really wrestling with those words,
Okay.
asking God to show you what they mean for you in your
Mhm.
current situation.
Yeah.
Think of it like a conversation, not a lecture.
I'll admit, sometimes those ancient texts just feel like
Yeah,
a completely different language.
I hear you.
It's easy to get lost in the these and thous
Yep.
and miss the message entirely.
Right. It can be intimidating, full of unfamiliar language and historical context. But remember, those words have stood the test of time for a reason.
Hmm.
It's a book that's brimming with stories about people facing their own mountains.
Uh-huh.
Don't be afraid to grab a good translation.
Okay.
Maybe a commentary to help unpack those trickier bits.
Yeah.
And just ask God to guide your understanding. What
Yep.
jumps out at you?
Uh-huh.
What makes you angry, confused, or even excited? Those are the nuggets worth digging into.
So prayer and scripture study,
Mm-hmm.
those are two biggies.
Two big ones, yeah.
What else can we do to kind of put that faith into motion?
Well, think about your mountain.
Okay.
What small steps can you take today to start chipping away at it?
Mm.
Maybe it's sending that difficult email, having that tough conversation you've been putting off,
Oh.
or simply offering a helping hand to someone else who's struggling.
Mm.
Those seemingly small acts of obedience
Oh, right.
can have ripple effects far beyond what you can imagine.
So it's about taking action, even if it doesn't feel like it's going to instantly level the entire mountain.
Yeah.
It's about trust in the process,
Trusting the process.
even when we can't see the end result.
Precisely. It's about choosing to act in alignment with your faith, even when it's scary.
Okay.
Even when you feel ill-equipped.
Yeah.
It's about saying, God, I'm stepping out in trust.
Right.
Even if it's just one baby step at a time. I believe you can work through me.
This is starting to feel less like a grand impossible feat and more like something achievable.
It is achievable.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's less about mustering up this superhuman faith
Right.
and more about taking those faithful actions one after another.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Oh, that's good.
The disciples, they were meant to work as a team, leaning on each other's strengths.
Okay.
So who are your trusted allies? Those people who can encourage you, offer a different perspective, or simply remind you to keep going when you feel like giving up.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out for support, to build your own faith team, so to speak.
I love that My Faith Pit crew.
There you go.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, sometimes just having someone else to pray with, to vent, to remind us that we're not crazy for believing in something bigger than ourselves. Yeah. I mean, that could be a mountain mover in itself, right?
Well, absolutely. We weren't meant to walk this journey alone. Community encouragement, shared faith.
Yeah.
Those are powerful forces that can help us face even the most daunting challenges.
Okay.
Remember, the disciples eventually overcame that initial setback and went on to do incredible things. And you, with that same mustard seed of faith planted in your heart, you have that potential within you too.
Okay. Wow. It's amazing how, you know, we started with a simple verse about a tiny seed.
Right.
And we end up having this like really rich conversation about, you know, how we face those mountains in our own lives. I feel like we've really dug into not just what this passage says, but like what it actually means, you know, for how we live.
Yeah.
How we approach those moments where, you know, our faith is really tested.
And that's the power of these deep dives, isn't it?
Yeah.
We go beyond just these like surface level interpretations and really like grapple with how these ancient truths apply to our modern lives, our very human struggles.
For sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, we all have mountains to move. Right?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, a personal crisis, a career setback, a relationship that's falling apart.
Right.
It's so easy to just get overwhelmed, to feel like our faith is too small.
Right.
Our efforts are too insignificant to make any real difference.
Hey, but you know, that's exactly where this passage offers this incredible hope. It reminds us that it's not about how much faith we can like muster up in our own strength.
Right.
It's about placing our trust in something so much larger than ourselves, a power that can move even the most immovable obstacles.
It's like that saying, faith is taking the first step.
Oh, yeah.
Even when you don't see the whole staircase.
I love that one.
Yeah. We might not know exactly how things are going to work out, but we trust that there is a staircase.
Right.
And that we're not taking those steps alone.
That's a perfect analogy. It's about surrendering our need to control every little detail and instead just leaning into that trust. Believing that God is working even when we can't see the full picture.
Right.
Remember the disciples? They couldn't see how healing that one boy would eventually lead to them changing the world.
Yeah.
They just had to take that first step.
Right.
That act of faith. And we can do the same.
So if there's one thing we can take away from this whole deep dive, it's that we don't need to wait for some kind of like supernatural faith explosion to start tackling our mountains.
Exactly.
It's about those like daily choices, those small but consistent acts of trust that over time can shift these seemingly impossible situations.
And it's about remembering that those small acts, they have this ripple effect, like that mustard seed. What starts as something seemingly insignificant can grow into something far greater than we could have ever imagined.
Wow.
Our faithful actions, no matter how small, they can inspire others, create positive change, and ultimately point back to the source of that power.
It's not about becoming like mountain-moving superheroes or something. It's about partnering with the one who already is.
Exactly. Yeah. So as you go about your day, we'll leave you with this challenge.
Okay.
What mountain in your life might seem impossible to move on your own? Where could even a small seed of faith, coupled with action, start to make a difference?
Yeah.
Maybe it's that phone call you've been putting off, that act of forgiveness you've been struggling with, or simply offering a helping hand to someone in need.
Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out.
Nope.
You just got to take that first step.
Just that first step.
And who knows, you might just find yourself moving mountains, one mustard seed of faith at a time.
That's it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and until next time, keep seeking truth and keep the faith.